Hello and welcome to Face on Citi TV. The House of Parliament is pretty exciting in the Fourth Republic. This particular parliament is more exciting than any other parliament in the past, except maybe the one-sided one from 92 to 93 to 97. But this particular parliament, that parliament was a one-sided parliament. Now we have a hung parliament, which means it's a neck-and-neck parliament, save one person. Now, that person who is the extra MP for the majority side is also the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, and that person was sponsored, we are told, by the minority. Actually, not told, we were there when the minority side proposed that he becomes Deputy Speaker. This Parliament is very complex. So, on Face to Face, we like to speak to the members of this particular Parliament to ask how they're doing, how the House is doing generally, how they are checkmating the government, as in the executive side. So on Face to Face today, that is the conversation we are going to have. My name is Umaru Sanda Amadu. When I come back, I'll tell you who my guest is. My guest is a former journalist, former morning show host, was a correspondent at a point, and then went to Parliament representing the people of Tamale North. Two-term member of Parliament. Alhassan Suhuyini, you're welcome to Face to Face.
Thank you very much, Umaru.
Are we seeing you practice your journalism in Parliament? I think I see you every now and then when you ask your questions during the appointments committee sitting. We see some journalism in you.
That's why I say I'm always a journalist at heart. I think that journalism has served me well, and sometimes I wonder still if it was a right decision to transition into being a politician. But with the opportunity to still do what I used to do on radio, especially on the appointments committee and on the floor of Parliament when I invite ministers to answer questions, I think that it's good to have a bigger platform than just the studio I had then, and to represent at least a section of Ghanaians, and to have them look up to you for leadership, and to have them support you, find solutions to the common problems that we all share.
Members of Parliament who are lawyers write to the Speaker and are able to go to the court during the normal day to go and represent their clients, and also they can do their business on the side.
Yeah.
Can't journalists who are MPs also seek permission from the Speaker and go and be practicing so that maybe you can do a morning show? Now that we are told that you are not going to be sitting in the morning, you'll be sitting at 2 p.m., you could go and do a morning show, finish and come to Parliament. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm sure we'll get there. I mean, our journalism hasn't gotten to that stage yet. That is why we still have people pretending to be apolitical when it comes to, the profession. Elsewhere, it's not like that. People can identify with political ideologies and still, host top shows and get high ratings for the shows that they do, because the fundamentals of journalism, are unique. And if you strive to be fair, if you strive to be objective, it is able to make up for your bias. And so elsewhere, people, even when you show bias, because you have admitted to it, it's easy for them to determine how you have been influenced by your bias when you make certain decisions as a journalist. But here, people just pretend that they don't have any political affiliation, because that is what society finds acceptable now. And yet we know that everyone votes at the end of the day, and so have preferences, have biases, and those biases reflect in the work that they do.
But you're working with a media house that the allegiance was very clear. It may not have been written down in black and white, but we all knew the allegiance, political allegiance or alliance of your media house. Now you are an opposition member of Parliament. The job of a journalist is to hold people in power accountable. Your job as an MP is to hold the government accountable. That is very similar to what you are supposed to be doing as a journalist. I think it should be easy for you as an opposition MP to be a journalist as well. Don't you think?
I think so. I think so too. But I'm saying that just because of that same, notion that the media house that I worked for had a huge bias, I recall, I had a stint relationship with Citi FM. I was at Citi when I was offered, the biggest platform at the time, Alhaji, on Radio Gold. And a number of friends I consulted with, especially those who happened to be members of the New Patriotic Party, which was in power then, simply wrote it off. Even before, like they said, even before you utter a word on air, you'll be deemed to be NDC, so don't even try it. But I thought to myself that I wasn't going to be deterred by that. I was going to go to the platform and strive to still be fair and balanced and objective as much as possible, despite whatever bias I may hold or despite whatever bias people may have against the station. I was going to strive to, be objective. And thankfully, managers of the station did not expect anything less from me. I mean, not once, was I ever instructed on what to do or how to go about, my programs, what question to ask and what question not to ask. I mean, a few times when certain programs got to the head, maybe management will want to know what happened, and you just have to explain what happened without any apologies and without, you just explain what you knew and how you carried out what you knew and what happened, and maybe things went out of hand. No sanctions, no queries. Maybe they just wanted updates, which you gave occasionally without any qualm. So I was very happy that I did not listen to that, suggestion that, look, you'll be branded wrongly if you go there. Yes, I mean, I believe that many people who made time to follow the programs that I did, many of them I know came to the conclusion that yes, the station may have been considered by us, but the shows that you hosted, you gave equal platform and equal opportunity to anyone who was willing to appear on it, and you asked everybody who appeared on it critical questions. So I believe, based on that background, a politician like myself can, continue to practice journalism and do it so well if he gets leave from the speaker.
Can you do me a favor and put in a specific leave to the speaker so we can have precedent for, some of the journalists who have parliamentary ambitions, so we know that our jobs will be secured on both sides.
You do have parliamentary ambitions?
No, I'm saying those of us journalists. I didn't say me.
Those of us journalists
who may have,
you.
I'm using, my words are careful, who may have parliamentary ambitions. If you start, I think you should set a precedent.
Maybe you should get me a platform on
No, get the permission first. Get the permission from the speaker first.
You need the speaker, the leave is such that when you make the request, the speaker will refer your request to a committee.
Okay.
And the committee will determine if what you are going to do will conflict with your work as a member of parliament. Okay. That's why you will need a platform, so that they will weigh the platform and the contents of the platform to detemine.
So you need a platform first. Yes. I can't give you my platform, but I can ask you to go back to your old platform. Radio Gold is dead.
Sanda, last Saturday, when family and friends and former workers of Radio Gold gathered to pay their last respects to the founding CEO of Radio Gold, Mr. Bafo Boni, that was one thought that kept, ringing in my head. I saw Kwame Sefakai there, I saw KOD there, and I saw James Ajenim there. And I thought of the opportunity that platform gave all of them to become who they have become in society, myself included. And I couldn't help but imagine the many others after us who have lost that opportunity to also, express themselves on that platform for people to determine the value that they have and provide them with more opportunities like they provided Kwame Sefakai to become Chairman General, KOD to do all the things that he does, James Ajenim Boateng to become Minister, myself to become a Member of Parliament. I'm sure many, many other people, if that station were still on air would have even done greater than some of us have done. So it kept ringing in my head that why did we have to get to that point? And the only answer was bad governance. Terrible governance. I mean, it is not as if media houses have not engaged in infractions, even if you are accusing Radio Gold of infraction in the past. But it's as a result of the realization that the infractions are not worse than the opportunities that we have as a democracy to grow our media, especially a young democracy. And so even where sanctions must apply, they must be reformative, they must be corrective, and not condemning just to close. And so I can only agree with Freedom House International, a non-governmental NGO into media freedoms, when they conclude that many governments across the world, because of clear, condemnation of violent and open hostility against media that is considered critical, no longer use that approach of arresting, detaining, and, Rambo-style closing down stations and shutting critical media platforms. They use the subtle means of regulations and licensing to still engage in censorship of the media. It's a whole report, a 2011 report. And the Ghana case fits into it. And I feel very sorry that on the day that we bid Mr. Bafoboni farewell, that station was off air.
But if you are a media house and your job is to hold government responsible, responsibility must start from your own backyard. If you are not responsible, you do not pay your dues appropriately, shutting you down is the right thing, because that's what you advocate for as a media house, and say that company ABC is not paying tax and they have to be shut down. So what is different? Why should a media house be treated differently?
Well, first of all, a media house shouldn't be treated differently, but it should be treated fairly. If that is what the system wants to, enforce, they shouldn't make excuses for other stations that also are equally guilty and target others. Then it defeats the whole purpose of fairness and objectivity in implementing the law. So that's my first response to it. Yes, if media houses must not, must suffer for infractions, all media houses that have fallen short of the regulations should suffer. But you don't isolate some and consider them friendly and provide an opportunity for them to correct the infractions and just become intolerant.
But the NCA has said that several reminders were sent to your station. Your station didn't pay heed, and that is why what happened to it had to happen to it. That's recklessness and irresponsibility. So the bad governance you talked about was a Radio Gold bad governance, not a national bad governance.
That is not correct. You see, in my language, in Dagbani, we say that, you do not judge the speed of a horse when it is in a race by itself. You need competition. So you hear from the NCA, be patient enough to hear from the station also, and not be quick to dismiss what the station also says. It is in that competition of the narratives that you are likely to see some, conflict that will point you to the right things. Because clearly Radio Gold, at the time that they claim, so there's even no reminder. What we know is that the station actually put in a request for, the renewal of license. The officers who took it there were eventually called and later told their request could not be found. Another request was sent. So it was rather Radio Gold that kept following up. Now, mind you, before all of this, Radio Gold had gone to court when some charges were slapped on all these stations. And Radio Gold, together with the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, won the case in court that the NCA had acted irresponsibly. So that is where the vindictiveness, in my view, started. How dare you win such a case against us? So they then dwell on a portion of the ruling that says that, yes, you had slept on your job, NCA, and so what you are engaged in against the station now is illegal because the station is, or the station should have had license AB from you. And so, and at that point, the station had made the request for the license. It's just like this judgment debt saga. I'm supposed to get, a license to build a plant from the Energy Commission. You are supposed to, constitute the Energy Commission appropriately to give me the license. You don't do that, and you turn around and punish me. So clearly, the NCA failed to do its job, and then turned around to punish Radio Gold for winning, a case against them in court.
Critics of partisan media houses will say we haven't missed the likes of Radio Gold, really, have we? Because media houses are supposed to be neutral, and they've been doing that, and the media houses are holding this government to account or to task. Do you think Radio Gold has been missed, really? And I mean Radio Gold in the context of media houses that behave in that manner.
Radio Gold has indeed been missed here. I mean, every now and then I go to functions and I meet people who continue to ask me, when is Radio Gold coming back on air? And that is not to take anything away from what current media houses are doing. They are doing very well, no doubt about that. Putting governments on its toes, and also the opposition, on its toes sometimes to, act responsibly. So current media houses are doing very well, but there was something about Radio Gold that is missing in the whole scheme of things, and it had a unique style. It had a unique way of going about the same things that you are doing so well. And that is missed.
As a lawmaker, what do you make of the government's handling of the media space and the media's management of the government?
I have been disappointed in the media handling, even as I am not surprised about the government handling. I didn't expect better from Nana Akufo-Addo as president and commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. Yes, there was a very good brand around him, being a media, a friend of the media, human rights activist and all of that. I was not deceived by, the hype, because beneath the hype was what I saw in the New Patriotic Party that he was leading. I had seen President Kufuor. In fact, I was young when I saw Edu Boahen lead the NPP. I followed the politics then, 92 to 96. I followed that politics, and I saw how Edu Boahen led the NPP. I was mature enough to follow how President Kufuor led the NPP in 96 and in 2000 and 2004 and 2008. I saw how the President Kufuor, leadership, branded the New Patriotic Party. So I saw how Nana Akufo-Addo was leading the NPP from 2009. And so I was not deceived by the hype. Clearly, he did not tolerate dissent like President Kufuor did, like Edu Boahen did. Clearly,
he said he preferred, he's a bullish, I'm not sure I remember his quotes very well, but he said something to the effect that he preferred a media house that was rancorous to the absence of a media house. That's what the president said. Absence of media.
And that's another irony of the president that you have pointed out. I am on record to have said that I do not think the president sometimes understands the beautiful speeches that they write for him to read eloquently. Honestly, he reads those speeches eloquently, beautifully. But his conduct after such speeches just leave you wondering if he understood what he read. I'll give you an example. Ghana celebrated independence in 2018 in Tamale. The president on the day spoke about domestic tourism, eloquently urged all of us to ensure that we travel and explore our country and its beauty. 2 days after that speech, he traveled with his family to Norway for holiday. 2 days after that speech, on leave. And I can give you countless, examples of how he says one thing and clearly does not live up to it. So it's beautiful. That is what should be the case. A rank-cross media is always better than a no media at all. But what has he done? Under his watch, for the first time in the Fourth Republic, he's the only president that has supervised the closure of media houses in the scale that it has happened.
Maybe because he's a lawyer and he believes that the law must be respected. If media houses have been disrespecting the law for decades,
under his watch, our performance as a media-friendly country has deteriorated. Is that also because he's a lawyer? In fact, he actually prides himself of responding in an intimidating manner. So much so that the media is beginning to talk of culture of silence. But he has the right, and he and his government have the right to respond.
Culture of silence. The government says that you cannot push them and say
that is interesting, because all previous presidents have always had the right to respond. In fact, I dare say that President Mahama was the most readily available president to respond to criticisms of his government. In fact, some of his handlers used to complain that he, responded too often to some of the issues, because each time he responded, it led to, the propaganda, machine, milling and turning all things. But he was always available. But not once did anybody feel intimidated or threatened by his responses. His ministers were on duty, responding to criticisms, but no media person ever felt that there was a certain sense of culture of silence. Okay. So it must tell the president that it is not the right to respond. It is not by the response of the government that people get intimidated and feel there's a culture of silence. It's the nature. Okay. It's the blackmail. It's the subtle threats. It's the cancellation of contracts. It's the threat to withdraw businesses. And in some cases, the threat to life, which leads the likes of Manasseh, to seek asylum somewhere, at least for days.
Okay. This is Face to Face on Citi TV. I'm speaking to a former journalist. I want to call him that, even though he insists he's not. And the Member of Parliament for Tamale North, Alhassan Suhuyini. My name is Umaru Sanda Amadu. When we come back, he's a member of the Appointments Committee. Has the Appointments Committee of Parliament become useless? That's the next question when we come back.
This is Fact Finder from the BBC.
We live in a world where news travels fast, and sometimes it's hard to differentiate fact from fiction. Fact Finder brings fact-checking from the newsroom up close so you can separate truth from chaff. Be empowered to tell what's fake from what's real. Watch Fact Finder by the BBC on Citi TV every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Citi TV. It's your world.
You're welcome back to Face on Citi TV. My guest is a member of Parliament and a member of the Appointments Committee. Your Appointments Committee, for many who are watching from outside, you're supposed to assess nominees, possibly shoot them down. We have always been hearing that no Appointments Committee has shut down any nominee, blah, 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 and that is just become a rubber stamp. That Parliament is just useless. It just does the job of the government. And this is because often the Appointments Committee is chaired by a member of Parliament from the NPP side or the governing party side, and most of the time you have majority of the members being from the governing side. This particular Appointments Committee, you are unique in that you have 13 each, and yet all nominees who have come before you, nominees you have raised questions about, nominees you opposed, at the committee sitting, have all gone through. Can you explain to me how truly useful your committee is, this Appointments Committee?
Well, Sandra, it's a very difficult question to answer. The committee has lived up to its constitutional mandate. The constitutional mandate of the committee is supposed to vet, to ensure that ministers that are nominated satisfy at least the constitutional requirement of becoming ministers. And maybe the problem is with our constitution. The bar is so low. It's not just for qualification to be minister, but also for qualification to even be member of parliament or even be president. We limit it to just age and sanity of mind and being a registered voter, have not committed any crime for which a court has pronounced you guilty and all of that. So it's written in the constitution what the basic qualification of a minister should be.
What other elements do you want to see?
Well, I think that we can all discuss it together because of clearly our expectations that some people should not have passed through the appointments committee. It can, ignite a debate of what we really want to see being put in there as, a criteria for one to qualify to become a minister. But as it stands now, it is that easy for anybody to become a minister once a person gets nominated by the president. You're a citizen of Ghana, of a certain age, of sound mind.
It's not easy. You need parliamentary approval.
Yes,
luckily for you,
but
now,
the parliamentary approval is supposed to be premised on this constitutional. Remember that even nominees have rights, and so even if you vexatiously, reject a nominee as a committee, the nominee can take you to court. You know that, and argue on the basis of the constitution that you as a committee had no right to have stopped his appointment. So you need to look at it on that basis. So on that score, I will say that we have lived up to our responsibility as a committee. Okay. But at the individual level, I must admit that I feel a certain disappointment that majority of Ghanaians feel. I feel a certain disappointment because yes, some nominees have appeared before me and have left me, with the feeling that one, they may not even have the know-how to handle the ministry for which they have been nominated to fill, or they have a questionable character based on their past dealings, or they have demonstrated even lack of appreciation of what it takes to be a minister. I've encountered such, at the appointments committee level. But are there strong bases enough upon which one can reject a nominee? Mm-hmm. I'm saying constitutionally, no.
Okay.
You understand? Mm-hmm. Then it becomes difficult based on those things to even convince majority of members, not just of the appointments committee, but of the 275 members of parliament to go with you. It becomes that difficult because it in the end the arguments are made that look, the person has passed the constitutional barrier. It's just about the way you feel based on even if it is proven wrongdoing. That wrongdoing has not been captured in the constitution to be a barrier. You get it?
So then why do you have to sit down and panel 26 people? We provide you with sitting allowance. Why do you have to sit down there? And if at the end of the day you're going to just check whether they are constitutionally required, because a lot of these people are even MPs already.
You see, the work of the appointments committee is not only to prevent, appointees from becoming ministers or nominees from becoming ministers. So now let's look at what it is able to even unearth and reveal. The information, as a journalist, I believe is useful for your work. Mm-hmm. As watchers of democracy, it impacts the research that they do. It enriches our governance system. No, but for the appointments committee, who would have heard about frontiers and how much the state was losing as a result of that reckless contract? That's just one example.
We could get it from the Public Accounts Committee. We don't have to go through the Appointments Committee.
Not all those. So they are complementary. It's not everything that comes through the Appointments Committee. I mean, that comes through from the Public Accounts Committee. And trust me, sometimes because it's been raised at the Appointments Committee, it becomes an issue of concern for auditors, and they pay more attention and discover more. So, I mean, the work of the Appointments Committee should be seen to be beyond just the ability to stop ministers from, being approved. We currently are also following the $18 million, dollars deal that McKinsey is supposed to have also entered into with the GRA, and what benefits the country got from that or not. It also came as a result of the Appointments Committee, and the contract for the first time between GRA and McKinsey had to be summoned and presented by the Ministry of Finance for examination.
You ask all the questions, albeit they are mostly questions from the minority side, but then the people go through anyway. There are cynics on the outside who say, don't mind them, they've collected money and passed the nominees. What do you say to that?
It's painful, Sanda, it's very painful.
But you collect the money.
I have never done that.
Do your members, colleagues collect money?
I've heard that people collect monies. I have defended it in the past and have been told I may be acting naive. I have no evidence that any member has collected money before. But
you yourself, you never collected?
Never. And that is why it is painful.
Not on the eve of the election.
Apart from what is legitimately, given to me by Parliament as a member of the committee, I know of, no money elsewhere that comes to members of the Appointments
That before
Committee.
You approve someone, a very vexed nominee that you're actually going to go through vote, no one from Jubilee or somewhere brings finance, brings a load, a cash load.
I have no idea how it happens. I have no idea.
So
you recall. I'm telling you, you recall that, in the last Parliament, myself and Samia Blakwa and others raised the issue of money that was brought by
Ayariga.
Because at the time we took those monies thinking they were legitimate, funds that came through Parliament sources. But when we discovered the source, we returned it, and it caused a whole investigation. And I wasn't happy with the way it ended.
And later, when you found out that was a way of life, you now take it and keep quiet.
That's an interesting, conclusion, and that is why it is very painful.
How can you take this pain away? How can you remove the pain from your own party supporters and from yourself? Maybe your colleague Ablakwa has resigned from the committee. Why don't you resign if these things end nowhere?
Yes, I mean, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa and I had these discussions, for days, before he came to the conclusion that he came to. We went back and forth, and I was of the opinion that it was not, the best approach. No matter how enticing it was, even to myself, I didn't think walking away was the best approach under the circumstance. I believe that you will win some, you will lose some. But you will lose all when you quit. And so, in my view, as painful as it is, I am an optimist that things can get better. And I believe that staying in it and ensuring that I make little wins that will graduate into the big victory that I want is more important than just condemning it. Because you see, there is no other alternative that is better beyond democracy. It's been established. And the democratic, structures can be very frustrating, in my view, in giving results. It can be, that is why people will say the wheels of justice grind slowly, but eventually gets there. I think it is largely, a concept of democracy.
But staying on would mean not being true to your principles. If your principles say what is happening is not right, it's pointless, you don't stay, you move.
No. When your principles are that what is happening is not right, but I have a duty to correct it. I have a duty to keep trying. Even as I may fail 1,000 times, I still have a duty to keep trying. I mean, I have a very interesting, concept of this that I can't share on air, but Ablakwa, maybe when you have a conversation with him of her, he will tell you my concept and my approach, that to this, that, some people still have to remain to keep the light. I mean, that will keep conscience alive. That because you are there, maybe even if people were going to make 100 steps that are wrong, they will reduce it to 80 or 70 or 60. And then perhaps gradually, those steps will be reduced to 0. But if you leave it all, I mean, that's my belief. And not to take away, what Ablakwa did. I simply and overwhelmingly support his personal decision to have walked away. I think it was that frustrating for him. He wanted to walk away earlier. I respect that.
Have you thought of walking away too?
I'm talking about, yes, that's what I'm saying. We have discussed it.
So you yourself, you get frustrated, you want to walk away?
I mean, at that point that Ablakwa walked away, I'm telling you that we discussed it. And there was that contemplation. It was something we all contemplated. But in the end, I came to the conclusion that it was better for us, and I tried to convince him to stay in and try to continue to make to continue the fight.
So you were both frustrated, except that he jumped, you stayed on.
Yeah.
Who was frustrating your own leaders?
No, I think that it was just the way things work. I think it is just the way things work in Parliament. And
it was not like if you oppose something and then your leaders will say, shush it.
Yeah, Sanda. And to be fair, some of our leaders, also when you listen to them, and those who are older here, they are not also very proud and too happy with the way things are going. And that is why sometimes you want to give people the benefit of the doubt.
But if you're an
MP... And help, to transform the process that makes everybody uncomfortable.
If you're an MP and you're frustrated with Parliament, for the outsiders, what should we do? We should shut down Parliament.
We are not frustrated with Parliament. We're not, as MPs,
you're frustrated with by Parliament. The work of the House.
No, we are discussing a specific issue.
Okay.
The workings of, say, the Appointments Committee and how ministers are approved when people expect them to be,
Then people outside can be justifiably angry. And if they are angry, you don't know what they're going to do next.
Well,
either vote you all out or come and say, just close down the chamber and go home.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. But you see, if they do that, like we have always done in this country about corruption, you change governments because you are, you've reached a point that you can't tolerate the corruption anymore. But the structures remain the same. And then you put people you thought were angels in, and the structures, just reveal who they really are to you, and they turn out to even be worse. So what I'm saying is that it is better that those that we have who still believe that something can be done about the system,
stay on and
improvements can still be made.
You have been accused of personalizing the approval of one of the nominees, at least a lady nominee, that because the two of you engage in verbal intercourse, you thought that she should be arrested. Her proposal, as in her nomination approval, should be arrested. What are the facts in that matter?
You see, the facts relates to what I spoke about earlier. The need to keep conscience alive, even when you cannot get a dramatic change today. My view is that we must not allow people's conscience to die when it comes to certain critical issues like corruption. Even as people consider it normal, some of us must remain in the system to remind them that it's not normal. And it must not be allowed to become normal. So it had nothing to do with the verbal, interaction that I may have had with her, either on-set during the vetting or off-set after the vetting.
There was verbal interaction off-set?
Yes. But
was she abusive of you?
That is not important to me. For me...
But is she abusive?
For me, the reason for whether there was an abuse or not is what is essential to me. Mm-hmm. And the reason was that I asked a question of her that related to vote buying during her primaries.
And she denied?
She confirmed. In fact, she agreed to the existence of that report, but did not find it to be wrong, did not think that there was anything wrong with that conduct. And that's what shocked me. I mean, so I had to remind her that when she first came into politics as a teacher, she had an issue with her contender then, who had given 1,000 Ghana cedis to some of her party executives. And she thought and accused him publicly of attempting to buy and influence her executives. But it didn't still prick her conscience to understand that the act of buying votes with 1,500 Ghana cedis and a flat screen each was abominable. And that was my first shock. And the interaction that happened after the vetting cemented my notion that this person didn't have a conscience alive enough to the issues of corruption.
Did she accost you?
I call it an interaction, and I want it to remain so after the vetting.
Did she insult you?
I call it an interaction. I'm saying that interaction cemented my view.
Was it an insulting interaction?
It cemented my, whatever it was, whether insulting, whether a praise, it kind of confirmed my view of her when she responded to the issues that I raised. Okay. That this was a nominee that was not alive to the issues
Personally,
of
corruption. You're disappointed she went through, aren't you?
I was.
It was a voice vote?
Yeah. Well, in the end...
Oh, you guys walked out?
Yes, we walked out. Yeah.
Oh, so that was
in her case. In her case, there was no walkout.
You were there.
Eventually, interesting things. What happened eventually was that because of what you said, it was eventually reduced to,
personal
issue of Suhuyini being offended.
They said she came to apologize to you, did she?
And so arranged the whole caucus for her to apologize to the whole caucus. And the caucus, I wasn't too happy with it, but I wasn't going to. In my view, I had made the point.
So she came with her team to apologize to you guys?
To the whole caucus. But I'm saying that.
Did she hold your legs?
At that point, no. That wasn't. I wasn't going to allow that. By my upbringing, by my religion, it's not.
But after the apology.
But what I'm saying is that for me, what was important, Sanda,
yes,
was that the issue of corruption was kept alive.
Okay.
And anybody who thought that such issues were trivial will think again.
So my point is that the apology meant nothing to what your fears were. Yes. The fears remain.
Yes.
If you had your way, she wouldn't have gone through.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's a block or it's a mass action.
Like I said, because of the way the system currently works, that I'm not too comfortable with. But we'll continue to work towards perfecting it. Because no system is perfect in the world. It's being worked at. If you find the democracy in America working very well, it didn't start as smooth as it is today. If you find it working well in the UK, it didn't start as smooth as it is today. It took sacrifices of, some members. In some cases, some had to resign, some had to stay on to fight, some had to die, but in the end, the system got better. And that's what we are hoping, that our system will also get better with time.
This is Face to Face on Citi TV. Alhassan Suhuyini is my guest. He's Tamale North Member of Parliament. He's hoping that the system gets better. He believes that he has to stay on and fight. We'll talk about Tamale North, the constituency he represents. How is he staying in there and how is he helping the people? Don't go away.
Citi TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access Citi TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a news search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access Citi TV on your television. Citi TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the Go TV and Star Times box. Citi TV, it's your world.
You're welcome back to Face on Citi TV. My guest is a Tamale North Member of Parliament. The job of MPs is to fix problems, and the job of the government is to fix Ghana. There are people who are fighting for fixed Ghana. I'm sure it's in line with what the minority people have also been calling for. How is the fixed Ghana agenda going in your own estimation?
I think there's a need to commend young men and women who have taken up this battle so seriously. They are doing the work for all of us because when Ghana is fixed, it's not going to be fixed for just them. I mean, when our roads are fixed, when our water problems are fixed, when our drainage system is fixed, when our schools are fixed, when our hospitals are fixed, and we no longer have to treat patients on plastic chairs and have no beds for them, when the police provide us better security. It's not just going to be for these young men and women who are seeking to demonstrate. And you know, Sanda, that is the sad part of it. This is happening under a so-called human rights champion. One of his claim to fame is that he engaged in more demonstrations than any other political figure in this country. I'm talking about the president. Isn't it such ironic that under his watch as president, a mere demonstration, you know, is leading to loss of lives because the government will not permit it. The Attorney General, for the first time, have had to go as low as the High Court to frustrate and stop these young men and women from demonstrating to demand what will benefit all of us eventually. Because if the country is fixed, it's going to benefit all of us. I mean, for someone who has, you know, prided himself of being a champion of demonstrations in the country before, you would have thought that he will ask his Attorney General and all those putting impediments in the way of these demonstrators to stop that nonsense.
Demonstration has to
and allow them to
go
go
the
to
rightful rules and
of course. And what haven't they met? The Public Order Act shows what should happen. They wrote to the police informing them.
The police say they are not ready.
Why?
They
What kind of preparations do they need?
They
don't even need the kind of preparation that they did when Accra House of Oak met Kotoko. They don't need that for these demonstrators. They don't need that for the students who lined up when the president was up north with the Ghana flags flying. They don't need that kind of security arrangements for these demonstrators. They don't need the kind of security arrangement that was done for Sir John's funeral. For these demonstrators to just engage in 2 or 3 hours walk and go back home. It just tells you the level of intolerance to dissent, which is very unfortunate. And it is leading to needless loss of lives.
You're a member of Parliament. We are told people have died, and this would be at the end of the bullet of a state-sponsored security personnel. It will be a soldier, a policeman. How do you think this can be cured? Because this is becoming, in 2020, the elections, we saw a lot of bullets flying, and we saw a lot of people dying. And now people are dying at a demonstration site. As a member of Parliament, how do you reckon this can be fixed in the general fixing of Ghana agenda?
I think that, you see, yes, I'll come to that specific question, but we have taken too many things for granted for far too long in this country. I mean, I was scandalized when I heard the president after the elections refer to the number of people who died as few deaths in his, victory statement. Few deaths. Not even regrettable deaths. He didn't even use the word regrettable. Just said few deaths. And I thought to myself, how insensitive can you get because of power? We saw how, again, live bullets were used by the military against first-time voters whose crime was that they took part in the democratic process. Why should we tolerate such kind of things in our country? And that is why as members of Parliament, colleagues, joined hands to call for a thorough investigation. A motion was filed by myself, Mahama Yarga, and the leader, to call for a thorough investigation into how come people had to lose their lives for just participating in a democratic process, like an election in 2020. That motion is still being, handled by Mr. Speaker and the leadership of the House. But that investigation, that inquiry must come on for us to establish that so that it does not repeat itself again. First-time voters, when we are encouraging people to see democracy as the best system of governance, how can we continue to convince people that is the best when by merely participating in it, people lose their lives and nothing happens? So that investigation must happen. Now, fast forward, you have people again attempting to engage in their democratic rights of expressing themselves. In this case, demanding better services, that the country be fixed. And then one person mysteriously is killed, or one person linked to that movement is mysteriously killed. And out of frustration, there's an eruption. And the best approach is for live bullets to be fired into, again, young men who are mostly unarmed, just venting their anger. Let us not quickly forget of the Arab Spring. Let's not forget of what happened, when, people, young men and women overthrew dictators who had been in power for many years and could not even be toppled by the military in the North Africa. Let's not forget that. So we must be careful as a country that we do not push the patience of the majority of the people out there, to the brink. Because, like it is always said, the people that are in power are not as powerful as, those who put them there.
Okay, we need to go, but let's talk about your constituency briefly. Your constituency is a metropolitan constituency, isn't it?
It's a mixture.
You're an urban.
It's a mixture.
Oh, you have a rural part.
Yes.
Okay, how are the people doing? How are you fixing their problems for them?
Inshallah, alhamdulillah.
Or they elected you, came to Accra, enjoying air conditioning, forgetting about them. How often do you go back home?
I go to the constituency almost every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Every other week, yeah. So I make sure that I spend time there with them at the social events, whether it is a celebration of life or what we all don't pray for. I make sure that I'm always there. I interact with them. I visit the communities. Some of the problems that the might of the MP can resolve, you do. I do, because you need to understand that it's not all problems that we can fix. I always, liken our abilities in the constituency to Almighty. God has all the solutions, but He does not attend to all our problems at the same time. Even though we may all pray 5 times a day as Muslims or go to church every Sunday, we don't all get our problems resolved, at the same time or in this manner that sometimes we want it to be resolved. So, considering the might of the MP, you know that our capacities are not that much. It's not negligible, but it's not that much. And so what we are able to do in the community is fixing bridges, putting up classroom blocks, renovating clinics, putting up public convenience places.
You've been an MP for 5 years now.
Those we are able to do.
You've been an MP for 5 years now. Yes. What thing makes you proud the most? That I did this and I'm happy. Even if I left this earth today, I would be happy. Or even if I left Parliament, I would be happy that at least when I was elected, this is what I did for Tamale North people.
It's difficult, Sanda, to point to one thing. But I've always lived my life in such a way that I inspire others. So I get very excited when people say, but for you, or because of you, I am aspiring to be a better person in whatever field or in whatever form. Because you did it, I believe I can do it. I get very excited about that because that is what I've always wanted. I want people to look at you, look at me and believe that it's possible. Miracles can happen. Achievements can be attained. Whatever, you determine to be success around me, It's possible.
You're sounding like a motivational speaker now. I was
that's
looking for tangibles. You're giving me motivational.
But I'm telling you what excites me,
Okay.
Sanda. I'm telling you. But in terms of tangibles, I mean, they are numerous. I cannot point to one.
Okay.
I mean, for example, I have a relationship with an NGO, the Qatar Charity Foundation. They have been able to put up 2, if you permit me, world-class, clinics in my constituency, in the most deprived parts of my constituency.
Which towns?
I mean, we have Kula. We have one in Ward K. That is almost in town, and then we have one in. Why have I forgotten the name of it?
They will not forgive you.
I know they will not forgive me. I know. There's a competition between Taha, which is a community very close to my where I live, and this other community. So sometimes I'm seen to be biased in favor of them, but it's one of the deprived communities in the constituency. We have this clinic there, and the last time the National Health Insurance Authority team went to the community, they were surprised that a clinic like that was in that community, and so we are working to see how we can get the National Health Insurance to even begin to cover services that are, done there. Balai, that's the name of the community. Balai.
Okay,
Yes.
that's
Forgive
fine.
me. Balai.
Okay, let's leave it here. Thank you for speaking to us. And in 2024, we'll come back and then we can take proper stock of what you have done.
Thank you.
Will you run again?
I can't answer that now.
Wow.
I would have been able to answer if I'll run again if we had this discussion in 2017, but now I don't know. I leave it to God.
2017, you knew you would run again. In 2020.
Yes.
But in 2021, you're not sure that you run in 2024.
My hands.
Has the frustration really made you to even want to leave the house entirely?
It's not just a frustration. I mean, I leave. I think that I don't stay at places too long, Sanda. I try to make a mark, and I look for higher challenges.
So if you leave
this is still like a big challenge. So I may run again. I may not. It's all in the hands of Allah.
But if you leave Parliament, which higher place could you possibly go to?
You never know. Parliament is not the highest.
President.
Parliament is not the highest. President, vice presidents may not also be the highest calling in terms of service to humanity.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've been speaking to the incoming UN Secretary General, Alhassan Suhuyini, member of Parliament for Tamale North, member of the Appointments Committee of Parliament. Thank you for watching Face to Face, and do stay with Citi TV. It's your world.